Bonjour everyone, Françoise Almois-Monroe, astrologer. Welcome to my channel, Françoise, the Guiding Star. Today I want to talk about the new moon in Virgo on the 22nd of August 2025 at 4:07 p.m. Brisbane time, Australia, occurring at 0 degree 23 minutes of Virgo. And the axis of Virgo Pisces is very highlighted this time because the new moon on the 23rd of August is the first new moon in Virgo, because there is another new moon in Virgo as well happening, and it will be a solar eclipse, is the second one, okay? And between these two new moons in Virgo, we will have a full moon, a lunar eclipse in Pisces, happening on the 8th of September. So the axis Virgo Pisces is quite highlighted. So this first new moon on August 23rd is located at 0 degree of Virgo, at the very beginning of the sign. 0 degree is a critical degree. It represents the initial impulse, a fresh, raw, almost naive energy. It is the pure beginning of an archetype, and in Virgo it speaks of a surge of order, a new desire to clarify structure, to purify, to improve, and it can correspond to an awareness, a need to better manage your daily life, your health, your resources, and your work systems. And the second new moon on September 22nd, I want to give you a little preview here. It will occur at 29 degrees of Virgo, and what is more, it is a solar eclipse as well. And 29 degrees is also a critical degree, but here it is of a different nature. This degree is called an heretic degree because it occurs at the end of a sign. So it is saturated, represents the end of a cycle, a point of rupture or of accomplishment. The solar eclipse, especially on this degree, will make its message even more powerful. Something must be revealed, purged, or released. So, what it is about this phenomenon of the double new moons in Virgo? Having two new moons in the same sign in 1 year is quite unusual and interesting, and it amplifies the symbolism of the sign in question. Virgo is highlighted here, so there is a particular emphasis on Virgo energy, that is to say, work, sorting, optimization, details, organization, methods, critical thinking, service to others, but also health, especially that of the digestive system, purification, and rituals. Everything related to the body, mind, and spirit. So what can you prepare for? Well, to accept changes in the area ruled by Virgo and Pisces as well. So check in your natal chart where are the signs of Virgo and Pisces, and in which houses. These are the areas of your life that are impacted by this new moon. So you can prepare yourself to work on your flexibility, your agility, whether physical or mental. You can also prepare yourself to manage stress, because Uranus in Gemini brings a dose of the unexpected. I will talk about that in a moment. You can also observe what happens in your life in August to understand the lessons to be learned for September, and also try not to resist the transformation, the imposed changes that come between August and September. But let's return to the first new moon in Virgo on August 23rd. It occurs when the sun has just entered this mutable earth sign, opening this Virgo season on a demanding but necessary note. So the sun is in union with the moon to initiate a lunation that will be of formidable precision. So this lunation will not necessarily be gentle, but it is a lunation of appeal, of tension, and of lucid confrontation, with everything that needs to be readjusted. So starting Virgo season with a new moon is like entering a place you have not yet not put your foot in for a long time, and you find disorder there. Virgo season closes the first half of the zodiac, so it invites you to clear out space, to prepare for your new beginning. Virgo is not only the sign of organization, it also speaks of a deep intelligence of what surrounds you, and you understand that everything healthy is based on a fairly functional system. Virgo can speak to you about the ecology of existence. So this lunation forces you to review the invisible foundations on which your daily life rests. So this new moon in Virgo on August 23rd, like any new moon, occurs at a key moment in the lunar cycle when we sow the seeds of a new beginning. So choose your intention carefully when you plant your seeds this time, because it is a time of renewal which does not necessarily come easily, because a new moon has a tense conversation, a square, with Uranus in Gemini. It is an aspect that injects a dose of the unexpected, a great deal of nervousness during the timeline of this lunation. This also introduces a notion of urgency. Something within you may no longer hold up, so it wavers, changes, or even rebels, and we could expect many social movements in September. We can see them already, because Virgo's habits are no longer enough to contain the call of the new. It is as if there is a kind of electric buzz in the air and a mental agitation tinged with the unexpected. So the new moon square to Uranus suggests an imminent change, which is often sudden but not often visible in advance. It could be a change of intention or a turning point, and there is something that can or must be rethought. Virgo, a sign of rigor and optimization, is a sign that likes to control, structure, and perfect, while Uranus brings sudden upheavals, revolutionary ideas, and a certain heightened volatility. Its goal is still to screw everything up. So we could see a conflict emerging between Virgo's need for control, organization, and efficiency against an energy that pushes you to break routines and to experiment. This is very specific to Uranus. So expect unforeseen events which force you to review your plans, adapt quickly, and think differently on a personal level. Like frustration faced with the impossibility of controlling everything. The native of Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces may feel this tension more particularly. You will have to accept, navigate uncertainty, and find a balance between the need for careful planning and the flexibility required to deal with the unexpected. So this square conversation causes cognitive tension. How do you recognize or reorganize things without panicking? How do you adapt when you feel like you are no longer in control of anything? when you are faced with news that are completely overwhelming. Uranus is in the sign of Gemini, which shares the energy of Virgo because both are under the rulership of Mercury. So we are really in something cerebral at the time of this new moon. And the sign of Aquarius is a sign of the group, the collective, the sign of the future, innovation, new technologies. So Virgo and Aquarius have something in common, except that Virgo will do it in control, and Aquarius will do everything with a sudden turnaround. And as if that were not enough, the new moon forms another conversation, a very important one, which creates a pattern, a geometric figure called a yod, Y-O-D, formed with a double quincunx, angles of 150 degrees. And this creates a triangle whose apex or head is the new moon in Virgo, which sends a quincunx on one side to the conjunction Saturn-Neptune, both retrograde in Aries, and another quincunx on the other side to Pluton retrograde in Aquarius. There, with the quincunx of the new moon with Saturn-Neptune, we are on a dissonance that is almost invisible, but which will act deeply, because Saturn is about to leave Aries to return to Pisces exactly on the 1st of September. And this movement will color the upcoming full moon in Pisces of September the 8th. So at the time of this return, the Pisces-Virgo axis is awakening, and it is as if you already feel the call of other things. This can be felt as a mystical fatigue or a need for faith. Faith can be religious, but it can also be like the faith of an ideal, the desire for something to change, to almost reach perfection. In Pisces, the notion of dream can then becomes very strong. This quincunx with Saturn-Neptune is like a call to humility. It is also accepting that the systems and methods of Virgo must also integrate the invisible. You need meanings for sure, and you also need consideration for what you do not see, the invisible. This lunation is deeply karmic because it touches sensitive areas, inner knots that you thought you had overcome. Memories can resurface. Saturn's return to Pisces will push you to clean up your foundations, but not only the external ones, but also your internal foundations. It is about profound reorganizations, cleaning up within yourself. So you may experience this as a return to the past, a crumbling of your bearings, but it is also an opportunity to rewrite your codes and free yourself from old burdens. The full moon on September the 8th, a lunar eclipse in Pisces, will mark the middle of this lunation, and it is at this time that Saturn, back in Pisces, will resurface more clearly. It will reactivate a deep karmic framework that many of us will feel without being able to explain it. Know that when Saturn is in a sign, humanity experiences karma in relation to this sign. Saturn is the karmic planet in the sign of karma, Pisces. So we are really in something unclear. We are really facing the mask falling. It is a feeling that you may have already encountered earlier this year. You may have had intuitions about a project, about a person, about a way of doing things. But now, and in September, it is a culmination of false pretenses. That is to say that there are many people who being in the illusion, the false, will be put in spite of themselves, face to face with the light, and will have no other choice but to take responsibility. And if they don't take this last step to take responsibility, then it will be quite terrible when Saturn enters the sign of Aries again in February next year. Saturn in Pisces is a placement that no longer allows denial to have a place. So look at where you are in denial, like financially, emotionally. We can all be in denial about something in relation to your way of doing things, your way of eating, your way of managing your money, your way of managing your relationship, managing your conflicts, managing your career. Saturn in Pisces is a placement that encourages humility, and in this lunation, carried by the sign of Virgo, which is a sign of rigor, it is a good timing for Saturn to return to Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is a master of time who dives into troubled and sensitive waters, into the abysses of the soul. So somewhere it will force you to build on vagueness and at the same time not want to leave these things vague. For example, when we start a project, we cannot know how it will end. There is vagueness. So we must accept this vagueness. And that is a huge challenge, especially during Virgo season, when we want to look for details, proof, rational explanations. We are in this dynamic with the tension between two poles, between the methodical lucidity of Virgo and the letting go of Pisces. And that is the real challenge of this lunation. Subsequently, Neptune will also return to Pisces on October 22nd. So this end of this year will be marked by the energy of Pisces, and it will last until January, February next year, when Neptune and Saturn both will return to Aries. And then there will be a big and rare event when they will reunite in a beautiful conjunction on February the 20 February. They will be in deep union. So this is a very powerful new moon, because with its quincunx to Pluto in Aquarius, it adds more to the karmic aspect, and it gives it extra depth. So it is not just about putting things back in order for a new beginning. It is almost a personal transmutation, as if there is a secret passage to something else. It invites you to delve into yourself, to seek out what needs to change, and to let something die too. This new moon asks you to take a leap into the future, but not in the collective Aquarius way. It is more of an intimate leap, one that consists of reconciling the lucidity of Virgo with a call for profound renewal. This means that you will no longer be the same after this cycle. Purification is very important for the sign of Virgo. Purification in its ancient sense is not the rejection of what is impure. It is a return to the essential. It is like a stripping away, a sacred sorting, and that is where the quincunx of the new moon with Pluto is interesting, because Pluto is a planet of stripping away. And the quincunx is not a negative aspect, bringing only tension. In fact, it is a combination of a square, 90 degree, plus a sextile, 60 degree. 90 plus 60 equal 150 degree. So the square is indeed a tension, but the sextile is harmonious. So the quincunx is an aspect that creates a lot of doubt, a lot of hesitation, and a lot of procrastination as well. So this double quincunx between the new moon and Saturn Neptune on one side and Pluto on the other side tells you that it is better to do 1 than 0. That is to say, if you have planned to do a load of 50 things, by example, well, it is better to do 1 thing than 0. Because right now, it is not easy to understand your life, the life in general. Life is complicated for many of us. But it is better to move forward a little than to do nothing. Because the trap for Pisces is to remain in fantasy and escape and not to initiate anything concrete. And what is reordered at this new moon in Virgo could open up to inspiration at the full moon in Pisces on September the 8th. The sign of Virgo is also the sign of health, so this lunation can be experienced as an alert or as a pressing need for rebalancing. Virgo is an energy that governs the stomach and intestines, the digestive system. In other words, everything that sorts and everything that pushes you to eliminate. So during this timeline of the new moon, the body becomes a bit like the mirror of the soul. So if it is saturated, malnourished, neglected, it will speak loudly. So digestive pain, chronic fatigue, food, hypersensitivity could be signals that your body sends you, asking you to return to internal hygiene, but especially not a punitive hygiene, but a tender method. So this lunation is a time to reorganize things, but also to move forward at your own pace. Fortunately, we have Mars in Libra, which is not pushing you to act quickly. In fact, this lunation is an ideal time to take a mental break, to forget the media, your phone, because you are going to need some mental space, and because with Uranus in Gemini in square to the new moon, things can move very, very quickly. So Virgo is also the sign of service, and to serve does not necessarily mean to submit. There is a difference between being of service to someone or something and being in servitude, like a slave. Virgo is about being humble, and it is not self-denial, but it is accepting that we don't understand everything. So during these new moons, each of us can receive a form of vision, not an injunction, but an inner clarification. You can do whatever you want with your energy, and this new moon in Virgo asks you to be discriminating and to choose what you want to devote your energy to and where you no longer want to devote it. You can choose what you are willing to offer. This lunation is very alchemical because it transforms inner chaos into clarity of action. And this will allow you to transform the anxiety of imperfection into a commitment that will be much more harmonious. And let's talk about the ruler of this Virgo lunation and lunations to come. Mercury. Mercury is in Leo, and he changes the tone of the Virgo's dominant energy. While Virgo is analytical and humble, Mercury in Leo likes to shine, convince, and express his ideas with confidence. He is in Leo, the sign of the lion. that give us this image of royalty, the ruler, the leaders. So be aware that there is also an issue of personal power, of authority during the timeline of this new moon in Virgo. And Mercury in Leo has a beautiful supportive conversation, a sextile, with Mars in Libra. Mars in Libra is weakened because he is in detriment in Libra. And this sextile brings a dynamic impetus to speech, but also brings a dilemma between self-assertion and the need to compromise with others. We could witness passionate debates where everyone is looking to impose their point of view with panache, but without any real frontal aggression. To take advantage of this influence, you will then have to use the strength of Leo to express your vision using your charisma, while remaining diplomatic and avoiding falling into the traps of ego or mental rigidity, that is to say, remaining stubborn in your positions. So between the new moon in Virgo on the 23rd of August and the full moon in Pisces, this lunar eclipse on the 8th of September, there is a transition. It is like an initiation. On one side there's matter, the body, everyday life, the work, which is Virgo. On the other side there is the soul, the dreams, intuitions, memories, unconditional love, which is Pisces. So each of us will experience this lunation in a particular area. For some, it will be their way of working. For others, it will be their health, their relationship with their body, with someone, with their mental or emotional organization. But in all cases, we will have to adapt, reorganize, and above all, purify ourselves. In summary, this new moon of August 23rd is marked by a strong polarization between control and the unexpected, affirmation and compromises, attachment and transformation. You will face many challenges, certain forms of instability, difficulties finding balance. But this will also give rise to opportunities. With this new moon, you have a unique opportunity to break out of old patterns, old frameworks, and experience a new reality. The advice for getting through this lunation is first to accept the unexpected and cultivate a form of flexibility, then express your ideas while remaining attentive to others, and then observe the dynamics around you and detach yourself from those that are no longer aligned, that no longer make sense. And this new moon is a perfect time to re-evaluate your methods. Take stock of your ways of doing things, break certain routines, and open yourself up to new things. This new moon encourages you to succeed in your new beginning, your realignment, to stop running away from the call of your soul, which will sometimes be disguised under the demands of everyday life. You must let Virgo do its sorting work, so that then, at the time of the full moon lunar eclipse on the 8th of September, Pisces can let grace flow. And in this tension between structure and letting go, something profoundly new can be born. I wish this to all of you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to explore more, please like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. And consider booking an astrology reading with me in English or French. in person or online. May we all be blessed with love and light.